Jack the Ripper was far more disturbing than you thought, and was so horrifying he made entire cities afraid to sleep at night. But how is this possible? First reason, all of his murders happened in the same area. Each body was found within walking distance from each other, all killed inside of a small 1-mile radius, and was somehow never seen. But it gets more disturbing. He would hunt his victims at around midnight to 4 a.m., making him almost invisible, purposely attacking in dark or dimly lit areas, and would only last minutes, leaving before anyone could see him. And when the bodies were found, it wasn't just stabs. Some were left unrecognizable, cut open, or found with almost perfectly surgical cuts, missing organs. But he doesn't stop there. After every murder, letters claiming to be from Jack the Ripper would be sent to police and officials, mocking or describing the murder in graphic detail. One official even received a message with a piece of human kidney alongside. Even worse, he didn't wear a top hat or cape like it was said, but rather looked completely normal, meaning it could be anyone, which sent London into a full panic. People were terrified to sleep at night and patrolled the streets in groups looking just for him. On top of this, he would barely leave any clues or evidence behind, where police had to investigate thousands of different people and hundreds of different suspects, even including a woman later nicknamed Jill the Ripper. Still, nothing helped. But the darkest of all, there's only 5 victims we know about, with the possibility of much more, which he all did in the span of only 10 weeks, suddenly stopping in November 1888, where still to this day, no one 100% knows who Jack the Ripper is. These are horrifying facts no one tells you about Mount Everest that only get worse. First off, dead bodies are used as landmarks. Over 330 people have died on Everest, and around 200 bodies are still there, meaning you'll see people who died years ago, almost perfectly preserved, looking like they're still alive, helping climbers remember where they are or where not to go. But it gets darker. As you go up, the air can make you go insane. On Everest, the air is so thin it can lead to a disturbing condition called hypoxia, which starves your brain of oxygen, taking away your ability to think straight, make you hear voices or things that aren't there, take off important gear without realizing, or even walking off path never to be seen again. But it doesn't stop there, as your body will literally start to eat itself. If you manage to climb high enough, you'll reach an area called the death zone, where it's not just your mind anymore. The lack of oxygen makes your muscles become weak, can cause fluid to fill your lungs, non-stop headaches and nausea, your body can't heal, brain swelling, and at any moment you can collapse. And if you think you could be saved, there's no guarantee. When too high up, helicopters are unable to reach you, and rescuing is sometimes impossible, extremely exhausting, or can kill you, often forcing others to leave you behind to survive. But worst of all, it's estimated 50 to 60% of all deaths on Everest are on the way down, meaning even if you finally reach the top, there's no guarantee you'll make it back. These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Socrates. Firstly, he was considered extremely annoying, known to constantly walk around public and approaching random people in the street and intensely questioning their knowledge, often exposing them for being wrong, which made many people in Athens hate him. Next, he would sometimes turn into a statue. It's reported Socrates would randomly freeze, standing in place for multiple hours, all throughout day and night just thinking, where crowds of people and even soldiers would form around him, simply watching. But he gets weirder. He was almost always barefoot, even in winter, wore the same basic clothes every day, and didn't care about money at all, often refusing to take payments and lived extremely cheap. Not even working a job for the last 2 decades of his life, spending all of his time debating philosophy. And he doesn't stop there. He would publicly humiliate powerful politicians in debates so often that he began drawing in crowds and gaining tons of influence, becoming such a problem that he was eventually jailed and sentenced to execution for supposedly corrupting the youth. But the most insane is that Socrates could have escaped. Many friends and even corrupt insiders offered to help him escape the execution, but he refused because he believed escaping would go against all of his beliefs. And on the day of execution, he stayed completely calm, drinking the poison and discussed philosophy with his friends as it slowly paralyzed his body until he finally collapsed. How did this cat survive a sinking ship, then another, and another, every time it should have died? It all began during a World War II naval attack on a German battleship with a stray cat on board. A critical part of the ship being struck, sinking in the middle of the Atlantic, killing 2,000 soldiers, only leaving 115 survivors. But somehow, the cat survived, clinging onto a piece of wood rescued by British sailors. And this was only the beginning. They took the cat on their own ship, with food, shelter, and even named him him, Oscar. Everything was perfect. Until suddenly, the ship was torpedoed by a German U-boat. A massive explosion ripped through the ship, killing 150 soldiers instantly. But against all odds, Oscar survived, eventually being moved to a safer ship this time. Back to being a mascot with food and shelter, nothing could go wrong. Then out of nowhere, another German U-boat torpedoed the ship, ripping a hole through it. Everyone forced to quickly evacuate, but this time Oscar wasn't spotted. The ship fully sinking with no sign of the cat. The rescuers searched the wreckage, finding nothing. But then in the distance, clinging onto a small piece of wood once again, was Oscar, according to the legend, earning the new name Unsinkable Sam. Did you know about this frog that basically freezes itself to death on purpose? It all begins in winter, where the species called the wood frog will, instead of protecting itself from the cold like normal animals, hide right on the surface, not underground, strangely letting itself freeze in the extreme temperature. Their body turns frozen solid, ice literally forming in their veins. Breathing and heartbeats stop, and becomes completely unresponsive. Any other animal would be dead at this point, but this frog has different plans. Inside its body, a surge of glucose floods its system, acting like a natural antifreeze, protecting its cells from dying, allowing it to stay frozen, essentially dead, for 7 to 8 months. And once winter is over, it simply thaws out, waking up like nothing happened. These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Leonardo da Vinci. Firstly, he would randomly follow people in the street. More specifically, if you had a large nose, protruding chin, or a weird face. He would reportedly trail you for hours just sketching you in his notebook. Next, he was a chronic procrastinator, taking years to finish paintings and often left many of his projects unfinished to start new ones, where the Mona Lisa itself took over a decade. But it gets weirder. He wrote everything backwards, writing from left to right, using a mirror to see what was on the paper, making it almost impossible to read on its own. He carried a tiny notebook everywhere he went in case he had an idea or wanted to draw. Had little to no formal education, yet still learned science, anatomy, and engineering by himself. He was believed to be a vegetarian, extremely rare for the time, and would buy caged birds just to set them free. And even liked pranking people with his lizard, decorating it with wings, a beard, eyes, and horns to make it look like a dragon, then setting it free and scaring his guests. But he doesn't stop there. He would secretly dissect human bodies and study them, creating some of the most accurate anatomical drawings in history. Absolutely hated war, but designed tons of deadly war weapons, and predicted things similar to tanks, helicopters, parachutes, diving gear, and more, being hundreds of years ahead of his time. Have you ever wondered why the blobfish is called the ugliest animal in the world and made fun of for its looks, when in reality it's not supposed to look like this at all? But why? Firstly, blobfish aren't built like normal fish. Instead of having a tough body and hard bones, they have a jelly-like skeleton and almost no muscles, making them very squishy and fragile, barely able to swim. But this is actually perfect. You see, blobfish live deep in the ocean, around 600 to over 1,000 meters down, where the pressure is 100 times stronger than the surface. So their soft bodies actually help, making them slightly less dense than water, allowing them to float above the seafloor, drifting around eating animals without wasting energy, and look like a completely normal fish. But this is where the problems begin. You see, fishermen use something called trawling nets, which are made to drag along the ocean floor to catch other deep-sea animals. But because these nets reach so far down, they often drag straight through the blobfish's environment and catch them by accident, pulling them hundreds of meters out of their natural habitat, where the pressure drops rapidly. Without strong bones and low amounts of muscle, it'll cause their bodies to lose shape. Face stretches and sags downwards, and body collapses into a droopy-looking blob, no longer the animal they once were. And this is the version of the blobfish people take pictures of, making fun of an animal that was never meant to leave its home. These are the horrifying steps you would face if you got lost in the Appalachian Mountains. Firstly, you won't even realize you're lost. It only takes one wrong turn off trail that looks like the right direction, and the forest can start to repeat itself every direction you turn, realizing you're lost far too late, which is why many have disappeared in these seemingly calm mountains. But it only gets worse from here, as the weather can flip almost instantly. Due to the high elevation of the mountains, clear skies can turn foggy in just minutes, making it easy to get lost even with experience. experience. Then if you think screaming for help will save you, the trees and bushes will work against you, acting like a barrier, muffling screams or sounds you make, nearly impossible for people to hear you at a distance. Or if you want to call for help and open up a GPS, signal is unable to reach you here, leaving you on your own. Even creepier, these mountains are over 400 million years old, older than mammals, dinosaurs, and trees, not meant for humans like you. What you'll realize after seeing abandoned towns, mines, and old roads with no signs of life, just silence, causing your brain to start playing tricks on you. Many hikers report hearing voices, whistling, and a weird presence following them in this isolation, repeating all of this over and over as your body gets weaker, until eventually there's no trace you were ever here at all. These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Cleopatra. First off, she had a secret drinking club called the Inimitable Livers, hosting feasts or parties where everyone drank tons of alcohol, showed off luxury, and reportedly disguised as civilians wandering the streets plastered, pranking, or messing with random strangers. Next, Cleopatra loved to enter places dramatically. More specifically for important meetings, she would arrive on a massive decorated barge with purple sails, gold everywhere, dressed like a goddess, perfume or incense in the air, and had music playing. But it gets crazier. She was only about 18 when she became queen, turned into one of the most powerful and richest women in ancient history, spoke 9 different languages, and actually wasn't praised for her beauty, but more for her extreme intelligence, personality, and smooth voice that could apparently charm anyone. Even more insane, she married 2 of her younger brothers, but both later died after conflicts with her. She would test poison on prisoners to see which ones were the quickest, most painless, or didn't ruin your appearance. One time dissolved a pearl in her drink and chugged it for a bet, and even stuffed herself inside of a bundle of bedding to secretly meet with Julius Caesar and secure her throne. But the most insane, Cleopatra wasn't even Egyptian. She was Greek and was alive closer to the invention of the iPhone than the actual building of the pyramids. Did you know that emerald wasps are terrifying mind controllers and can hijack cockroaches' brains to walk to their own death? It all begins when an emerald wasp smells and spots a cockroach, tracking onto its movements and positioning itself for an ambush. Once you're in the perfect spot, it'll quickly fly in before you could even react, landing onto your body and stinging you in 2 precise areas. First into your thorax, which paralyzes your front legs, then specifically stinging you in the part of your brain that controls your instincts to escape. And it only gets worse from here, as the cockroach now is almost in a zombie-like state, completely passive and no longer resisting. The wasp could easily kill you here, but it has a far darker plan for you, grabbing you by the antenna like a leash and walking you away without control, dragging you all the way into a burrow it's specifically designed for your death. Once inside, it'll let go and lay a singular egg on you, walking out and sealing the burrow shut, leaving you with no escape. And eventually the egg hatches a larvae which slowly eats you over the span of multiple days, not only still alive but not even realizing what's happening. Over time, the larvae burrows deeper, feeding on your insides and hollowing out your body as it grows, all until you eventually die. And after a few weeks, a fully grown wasp will rip its way out of your body, starting the cycle all over again.